How about the thought that a home only passes or fails an inspection?
So it can pass, it can fail, or you can negotiate on the inspection. So in a world in which you've negotiated an inspection with the seller, so you're under contract, they've agreed to an inspection timeline, you perform the inspection, your inspector is going to go through and create a fabulous report. It's probably 50 or 70 pages long and tell you everything you didn't want to know about how heating systems work and electrical and the condition of the house. So when you need to respond to the seller on the outcome of that inspection, it's great. I have no concerns. I'm moving ahead with the contract. I don't need to request anything. There could be the scenario, and I've had this come up twice in my career, where the inspector actually just stops the inspection and says, I need to tell you what I found. Don't walk away, run away from this house. It needs to not be sold until it's fixed or it's beyond fixing. I've had that twice, that it's beyond fixing. So that's a pass fail, right? But then what happens when there's just deferred maintenance and items that are health and safety issues that should be corrected prior to the buyer buying? And then that's the fun part. That's where our skills and our experience comes in, that we can sit down with the buyer and say, what are the concerns? What can you live with? What would you want to fix? And then discuss a strategy for asking the seller to fix those things, asking for a credit, or a combination of both.
Right. So that's interesting. But what about recently where we don't get to do an inspection?
Oh.
So where we have the seller's inspection, hopefully, that we can at least look at something. And then what do we do there? Like how do we deal with that?
It's tough in this market because that ends up being the buyer's choice. Buyers have had, because of the competition, a seller doesn't look as favorably on a term or a contract that has an inspection contingency, right? Because you can back out for whatever reason. So we would sit down with the buyer. We'd have a strategy around it. We'd look at the inspection report. Ultimately, we would talk about the risk the buyer's taking by accepting the seller's inspection report. It's better than knowing nothing about the house. Right. It's not quite the same as doing your own inspection and spending that 2 or 3 hours doing it. So, is it a myth that, it's a pass fail? It's not necessarily a myth, but it's kind of the reality of a lot of our offers in this market. And the buyers are taking that responsibility on in trusting the inspection report.
Right.
And I will tell you, from my own personal experience, there are things that I'm standing in front of the house looking and saying, well, that siding, there's an active roof leak, and that siding is not in great shape because of that.
Right.
And that's not on this piece of paper that was done 2 weeks ago. And, and clearly this is not a new thing. So you really have to caution and represent your buyers and talk them through the risks that they're taking on.
Right. And really observe those things in person,
yes.
like the observables, because I found the similar things. And again, inspectors are human. They're not, like machines that generate exact,
power, all knowing.
Yeah. So there is that piece of it. So, yeah. So I guess in our market, to a buyer that has to do a seller inspection, then they may just pass or fail because they really don't have a lot of negotiating power. But as we return to a more normal market in 5 years,
or whatever, or next week, I don't know.
Right. Then there is that beautiful middle ground of negotiating.
Because I think I was sharing with you earlier, I actually did an inspection this week, which was fantastic with some buyers. We got under contract. Yeah. Only offer on the table. It's a fantastic, cute little house in Woodinville, and we're negotiating on it. What's funny about that is, again, I had to pull out the inspection response form and oh, hello, old friend. I have not seen you in a year or so, because the reality is we're not doing a lot of inspection negotiations. Yeah. And if you were a brand new agent and you just got licensed in the last year or two, it would not surprise me at all if you've never negotiated on inspections.
Right.
And there's, you can't give the list too long. You have to really decide, because this is the art of negotiation, and that's a whole different rhythm to it as well.